Mazin Namdekano said it. Today, is that not a reality? That several Kwara communities are fleeing their ancestral homes as the renewed wave of insurgents sweeps across the entire local government and regions of Kwara State. As Nigerian police confirmed 12 vigilantes dead. Some said these are forest guards, whatever they are called, but the truth remains that even the Nigerian government, the Nigerian police, could not deny the current waves of insurgency that is overrunning communities. Several communities across Kwara State have fled in the eve of this current security threat to their lives. I mean, people abandoning their homes, their communities, their societal and economic activities, fleeing in their own supposed country. Now, you begin to ask, what is really happening? And this level of hypocrisy will keep Nigeria stuck in the wheel of motionless and despair. When the government's sincerity and commitment to fight insecurity is in doubt, when the population of Nigerian citizens are apprehensive, they are not in, in terms with the Nigerian state over the issue or determination of fighting terror. Despite the peace deal being uh, observed in several regions of this country, this guys has remained resolute, and the intention to overrun the entire regions of this country remains unwavering. It is no longer a matter of controversy. You know, when Mazen Amdekan was saying it decades ago that they are coming for your communities, they are coming for your ancestral homes, they will overrun you and eventually overtake or take over the possessions of your own ancestral homes, communities that they are coming from Sahara regions and Futajalos and the rest of them. People mistook him for a talkative, and some called him Igbos. He needs some medical examination and the rest of them. Now, who exactly needs medical examination? Because it shouldn't be considered a surprise or something that just happened instantaneously, because Mazin Nandekano has revealed this. The reason why some are now convinced that Mazin Nandekano is not just an ordinary person, he's a prophet. Having made these predictions, which is no longer predictions, but these are current realities. I mean, these are real-time happenings. And the state police, Nigerian police, have confirmed several assaults on communities, on indigenous people. Now, if the vigilantes, which is the security outfit set up by the communities, just as the current DSS Director General has advised Nigerian communities to mobilize themselves and defend themselves against these killers, these terrorists. And yet, despite mobilizing themselves, they don't have the technical or combat skill to resist these people. That these people coming are well-trained militias, trained for the job, for the cleansing, ethnic cleansing, and the declaration of war on the indigenous communities of Nigeria. But sadly, rather than appreciating the voice of reasoning, the voice of wisdom, they resort to antagonizing Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. The very reason why he is being incarcerated today, he said, let my people defend themselves. That foreseeing the danger, the catastrophe, the imminent danger ahead, we cannot leave crucial issues untouched until disaster looms. Sadly, that disaster has caught up with all Nigerians today. It is no longer a matter of denial because everybody is feeling the brunt, the heat of this wave, this current wave of assaults, a deliberate, premeditated attempt to overrun Nigerian states. And sadly, the security operatives have been overwhelmed, as we can hear from the army chiefs. About a few months ago, the army chief said even though the entire military architecture or security business are being deployed in communities where the insurgency or the banditry operations are ravaging communities, that will not end insurgency because it is politically motivated. There are underlying factors that there are under political undertones. Not until those issues are being ironed out, the end of insecurity or banditry overrunning of several communities will not end. Now, the question to ask the service chiefs, what exactly is this political undertone? What are the underlying factors that the indigenous people of Nigeria could be targeted at will by assailants, supposedly to be foreigners in their own country home, killed, sacked communities, and reoccupied the lands, and yet the government is watching, saddled with the responsibility of protecting life and properties of Nigerians. You begin to ask, what exactly is the secret or motivations behind this? And who exactly is sponsoring these political movements or underlining political interests that will jeopardize the life of Nigerians, and the government resort to compromising the security of Nigerians and in order to please these entities and their sponsors. Of course, there have been several indictments of persons who allegedly were behind the sponsors of these terror attacks. Yet, the government severally have said they are going to prosecute these people and bring them to justice. Where are the lists, or has it got missing? You see, this ever increasing terror is quite very worrisome, as some persons have argued. You know, it started when Boko Haram started, their initial target was against Christian communities. In fact, it was a wave of horror against Christian communities in the north, ranging from Kaduna, Sokoto, Bauchi. In fact, the Christians were massacred in such a way, people, becomes, people were helpless. Several churches were burnt down, religious processions were interrupted, rounded up, and the time worshippers burnt down. Churches were on attack as the next target. Once they are done with this community, to the point that the Christian population in the north continued to shrink, and people could no longer express their religious liberty as it captured under the constitution that suggests that Nigerians have the right to their religious expression and liberty. But that wasn't the case because the perpetrators of this heinous crime were brought to justice to serve as a deterrent to others. And some persons argue that this is not a religious war, as is being expressed today from the north, the Sultan, and every other person is canvassing that the Christians should not consider this as a religious war. Where were they when all this mayhem, all these heinous atrocities have been, targeted on Christianities? Did they rise to condemn that? Did they aid in the prosecution or demand for the prosecution of this dastard element to serve as a deterrent to others? Of course, the answer to this is no. Everybody was folding hands, watching, of course, why all these atrocities are going on from state to state, local government to local government, community to community. The Christians are being targeted, but unfortunately, that is not the case today. Even the Muslims populations are also falling victims because they thought initially that it was the infidels or those considered to be the infidels. I mean, the fellow citizens, I mean, Nigerians, by virtue of religious differences, are being considered infidel, people who does not deserve to live, even in their own ancestral homes. It is not longer a matter of a different homes in the north or communities in the north. Now, this war is being taken to them in their own ancestral home. They don't deserve to live. It is quite unfortunate. And this reality cannot longer be denied as a matter of urgency. And people continue to watch helplessly as the recent or one of the most recent statement coming from His Eminence Sultan of Sokoto, if actually the bandit will be defeated, is to be a matter of decades, which means it may take more than 20 years or more to defeat Boko Haram. Now, what exactly was the intention? Why the politically underlying factors? What was their mission? Of course, not just strange to us as Boko Haram and other Islamic radicals has insisted that Nigeria must be declared an Islamic state. And in a bid to achieve or realize this, they are pursuing the Islamic State or Islamic Caliphate to be thrown in Nigeria, despite enforcing Sharia law on several northern states. They want an expansion of this Sharia law, overriding the conventional law known as the Nigerian Constitution. It's quite very unfortunate as they continue to push by every means possible. You know, the West resisted the recent move by the Islamic radicals, which was supported by the Sultan and the rest of them. They said, no, the Yoruba lands does not need such level of radicalism, that they are liberal people and will not condone whatever that might jeopardize the peace of the West. They consider the extremism of adopting a Sharia law as a no for them because of what they have seen in this northern states who practices Sharia. They don't have peace. Zamfara was the first to practice Sharia law, but today Zamfara have not known peace. And even Sokoto, unfortunately, has been reported by national dailies, several local governments, over 10 local governments, was reported to be under the control, I mean, the total control of this Islamic uh, militias. It is quite interesting. Now, if that should be considered the basis of peace, progress, perhaps the 12 states or more would have been an eyes opener whether other states will adopt that. But sadly, the states who practice Sharia have never enjoyed peace as far as Nigeria or the northern regions are concerned. Now, what is the basis of overrunning other regions? Even the Hausas communities who practice Islam are complaining that they have been target of this hostility and the factions. Their families, their mothers, women are being raped by the supposed assailants and adopted. They pay ransom and their own communal activities and farmlands are being overtaken, overrun by these deadly devils. Now you begin to ask, now whose interests are they serving? This could no longer be considered as religious inclinations, but ethnic centric dominance and exclusive control is what these guys are after. But with all these realities and evidence abounding, as Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has revealed several years ago, more than a decade, and yet Nigerians seems not to be in terms with the current realities. But that is quite unfortunate, as worse as this could be, have threatened the continued existence of Nigeria state, and possibly based on religious crisis, Nigeria might plunge into an endless war. This war might not just begin from the southern region, possibly the north, because now the houses, communities are saying we can no longer continue with this. We have considered and we have examined the current realities and find out that this is beyond religion motivations. Because if Muslims or Hausas who profess to be Muslims could also be target of this hostility, then there are more, of course, to be unraveled based on the current realities. It is quite clear now, as Mazi Nnamdi Kanu warned, that the Yorubas should beware of supporting what he called clueless and senseless government of Buhari, because they are coming after their communities, and today it is a sure bet. And but that is quite unfortunate. Not only until the people decide to stand up and defend themselves. It is very clear now, as several clergies and traditional worshippers are calling, that the people should rise to defend themselves. That is the only way to remain, of course, alive. Otherwise, you risk being extinct. Going into extinction might be the next alternative, because if you fail to defend yourself, then you have failed, of course, to guarantee or protect your right to live. There is no other better way to explain this. It's left now for the communities to. Kwara communities are hit. Several other communities, even the Castina is not left out. Castina being the state of the former head of state of the Nigerian state is no longer safe, let alone Zamfara and the rest of them. These are states that practice Sharia. Now you begin to ask, what were the motivations? You see armed groups and splinter armed groups, taking over, expanding their tentacles, their horizon, their dominance, occupying several Nigerian communities. And yet, the government of Nigeria is striking a peace deal with them. They threaten the existence of Nigeria, and that notwithstanding, we've seen the frustration on the part of most of the military operatives or personnel who have expressed dissatisfaction over what is going on, that their own lives are being politicized and exposed to such level of vulnerability. When they want to march head on with this excellence to keep them where they belong, suddenly you will see some voice from the top hierarchy personnel asking them to withdraw or retreat back. Rather unfortunate that thereafter they have been ambushed and spied on several occasions. Of recent, we saw how what happened in Borno State, one of the base, again, military base, were overrun, and there was severe, heavy casualties being recorded. How long will this continue? What defines a state, a country? Is it based on the level of criminality, assault, and the instant of insecurity rocking the states? It is quite a very disturbing development, but these are current realities. We could no longer live in denial. Nigerians are living with their heart beating, being apprehensive of whatever might be the next fate. Is quite unfortunate. Living in fear, apprehensions, and the atmosphere of uncertainty overwhelming of the entire sphere is quite unfortunate. But then, what should the people do if the foundation is destroyed? Of course, is to bring down that foundation and rebuild it, as people have argued. The reason why Mazi Nnamdi Kanu continuously, consistently maintain that the only solution to Nigeria is the volcanization of this Nigerian state. Let every region go and control their resources and manage their own security. That is the only way to stop the Islamization of Nigeria. That is the only way to preserve the cultural heritage and identity of indigenous communities. Otherwise, there is no other safe or, of course, guarantee for such. Otherwise, everybody risks being a state. It's not until Nigerian indigenous community rise as they have maintained and campaigned for the Biafra restoration, let Oduduwa have their own states. And definitely Kwara will be safe. Kwara is being considered as not part of North Central, but in real science should form part of the Yoruba land, ancestral homes. But what exactly is happening today? Could Kwara be considered an Islamic state? Well, only time will reveal more of this. Let's have your own take regarding this. It is happening now, and of course, as someone will say, cool, they catch me. But not me alone, of course, all Nigerians are apprehensive. Nobody knows what else some are saying. There could be any possibility of the entire country being overrun with the spike of insecurity and the government indecisiveness in contending with this deadly trend suggests that in a matter of years, there may not be one Nigeria, possibly will be overrun by this assailant, because by the way they are growing their influence and expanding their tentacles horizon across regions and getting more expansion suggests the current predictions. And Mazen Namdekano is vindicated today. Who will doubt his credibility and assertion that has become a reality, not a mere fiction or fabrication? You can testify today, of course, as is being expressed in the screen, that the Nigeria police confirmed 12 vigilantes killed. If security, local vigilantes or security outfit could be targeted in such a way, ambushed and killed, what is left for the vulnerable, defenseless Nigerian masses? Well, of course, we can get your own reactions via the comment section.